Welcome to Did You Know, a mini-series all about stuff you may or may not have known about the Bible to help you think about deep questions in a fun and informed way. Now, most people know the story of Mary, right? Mary was the young girl chosen by God who miraculously conceived a child and gave birth to Jesus. What about her husband? He seemed to just disappear. What happened to him? Let's talk about it. Joseph is mentioned most in Matthew and Luke's gospel. We learn that he grew up in Bethlehem and later moved to Nazareth. He was also a distant descendant of King David, which, even though he acts as Jesus' foster dad, gives Jesus a royal lineage. Jesus was always one-upping everybody. Now, many people think about Joseph as a carpenter, making tables and chairs and stuff like that, because that's the word that's used in Matthew 13:55, but that's not entirely true. The Greek word that some Bibles translate as carpenter is tekton, and it can be more accurately described as a craftsman or builder. Considering how trees were relatively scarce in that region, it's more likely that Joseph worked with stone or building blocks rather than wood. And if it's true that Jesus was the son of a stonesman rather than a carpenter, it makes a saying in Luke 22 all the more interesting, which says, "The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Meaning Jesus, who the religious leaders rejected, will become the foundation on which God's new covenant will be built. There's some food for thought. Now, Joseph is also described in the Bible as a just man and faithful to the law of Moses, which is a pretty good resume. Think about it. When Mary told Joseph she was pregnant, he legally could have had her killed for infidelity, but he showed mercy instead. Now, of course, not killing your fiance might seem like a pretty low bar to us. Merry Christmas, honey. Your gift this year is that I won't kill you. But given the situation in that culture, it was a pretty big deal. The Bible also tells us that Joseph had divine encounters through dreams in which he learns the true origin of Mary's conception. He also receives the command to flee to Egypt during a period of persecution and to return back to Nazareth once it's safe. Believe it or not, the last time Joseph is mentioned in Scripture is in Luke chapter 2 when the family goes to the temple in Jerusalem. And after that, he just sort of disappears. Now, of course, it's not a complete shock because the Gospels really aren't about him as they are Jesus, but still, you'd expect him to show up at some point. Even Mary makes an appearance from time to time. Wait, you still haven't answered the question, what happened to Joseph? Well, no one knows for sure, but we can take an educated guess based on the records that we have. The leading theory among scholars is that he died. What evidence do we have for this? Well, the Gospel of John tells us that Mary was at the crucifixion of Jesus, but Joseph is conspicuously absent. If he were alive, why wouldn't he be there to witness his own son's execution? There's also an interesting passage in John chapter 19 when Jesus was hanging on the cross. It says, "When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, 'Woman, here is your son,' and to the disciple, 'Here is your mother.' From that time on, this disciple took her into his home." Now, why did Jesus give the responsibility for Mary's well-being to one of his disciples instead of Joseph? Well, presumably because Joseph wasn't around to do it. So if Joseph wasn't around at the crucifixion, are there any other indications of when he might have died? Well, there's one more hint we get earlier in John's Gospel. In chapter 2, we read that both Mary and Jesus attend a wedding in Canaan early in Jesus' ministry. Again, though, Joseph is notably absent and doesn't appear at all in the 11 verses of the story. Now, could it be that Joseph was out of town or just didn't like weddings? Maybe, and he wouldn't be alone in that, but it seems more likely that Joseph wasn't alive to be in attendance. Therefore, we reasonably can conclude that he passed away before or shortly after Jesus' ministry began. Such was life in the ancient Near East. Not even Jesus' own family could escape the consequences of living in a harsh and fallen world. But Joseph didn't die without hope. He died knowing that this boy he helped raise would go on to change the world forever. Since his death, the Catholic Church has given him the title of Saint Joseph, and he's even been declared the patron saint of Mexico, Canada, and Belgium. So that's pretty cool, I guess. And there you have it, a quick look at the life and death of Joseph the Stonesman. If you learned something new, give us a like and consider subscribing. And let us know in the comments down below if there's another biblical character you would like for us to dive into. Take care.